The objective today is to add and subtract rational expressions. Alright, here is the first problem. It is 1 over x plus 2 minus 3x over x minus 1. Here are the sticks. What should I do first, Jones? That is right. Find a common denominator. How am I going to find the common denominator? That goes to Johnson. Huey. And let's go to Applegate B.
You cross multiply?
Yes, you could cross multiply and end up with the following. You could have 1, we'll leave the 1 alone, the numerators, but if you cross multiply, you could go this way to get your numerators, but for your denominators, you would just multiply them together to get this. And the same thing over here on this side. So that leads me to my next question, which is, how am I going to get this numerator here after I have found my common denominator? And we'll give that one to Klein. She's not here, so we'll leave her out. Dietrich, how can we find the numerator Blake? How about Collett?
The numerators you would multiply across the top, or you cross multiply on the top.
Yeah, you would cross multiply, that's right, where I wrote the arrows already. So you would multiply 1 times x minus 1 and put x minus 1 there. And then x plus 2 times 3x. X plus 2 times 3x is 3x squared plus 6x. Alright, so what do I do next? What is my next step? That goes to Davis.
Subtraction.
Yeah, we can subtract. We can put these all together on the same fraction, like this, and have x plus 2 and x minus 1. And then we would have to do this minus this. But don't forget that that's the same thing as writing x minus 1 minus the quantity of 3x squared plus 6. Anytime you're subtracting a quantity, you must put that second quantity in parentheses with the minus sign out in front. How can I simplify this, the minus quantity? How can I simplify that? That goes to Rayburn.
Would it be -3x squared minus 6x?
That's right. You would distribute the minus sign through the quantity. And x minus 1 is not changed, but you would have minus 3x squared minus 6x, changing the sign of everything inside. All right, what can I do now on the top of that fraction? That goes to Terry. What can I do on the top of the fraction? Applegate M.
Subtract like terms.
Yeah, add like terms. Add or subtract, whatever the case may be. So I have this, a negative 3x squared, and nothing else to put with it. But I have x minus 6x, so that's a negative 5x. And then I have the minus 1 left over. What's the last thing I can do to rewrite this expression? Murray. What's the next thing I can do to rewrite this expression? Howard. What can I do to the bottom of this expression? Lewis. What can I do to the bottom of this? Smith. What can I do to the bottom? Gaffney. What can I do to the bottom? Sexton. What can I do to the bottom? And he's not here, so we'll put the sticks back in. All right, what can I do to the bottom column?
You distribute it like I don't know how to say it, but I know what I'm talking, like you move it, you know what I'm talking about, like multiply them together.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Yes. Multiply it together. So you'd have a negative 3x squared minus 5x minus 1. And on the bottom, you use the FOIL method to multiply it out. Or if you have two simple quantities like x plus 2, x minus 1, you know you have to have an x squared. 2 plus a negative 1 is positive 1, so positive 1x. And then 2 times a negative 1 is negative 2. So this would be your final answer. But what's the next thing I have to put with that answer? And that goes to Jones. Yeah, what x does not equal. That is right. So, on the denominator, we had x plus 2 and we had x minus 1. So we set them both equal to 0 and solve those simple equations to come up with x equals negative 2, x equals 1. So x could not equal a negative 2 or a 1. This practice problem is 2 over x plus 6 minus 4x over 2x plus 1. For this problem, we need a common denominator. And that common denominator is x plus 6, 2x plus 1. And that's going to be on both sides. Then you have to go find your numerators. The numerator is going to be this times the opposite denominator on the other side. So it would be 2 times 2x plus 1. And the same operation on the right side except a different direction. 4x times x plus 6. Okay, let's simplify the top to get 2, or not 2. Can't erase now, I'm committed to that horrible mess. 4x plus 2, there we go. And then minus, remember you're subtracting the whole quantity of this. So it's going to be 4x squared plus 24x. And on the bottom, your denominator is going to be the multiplication of those two. So when I multiply that out, I'm going to start with a 2x squared from there to there. And then I'm going to have 1x plus 12x. That's going to be 13x. And then you finish off with a plus 6. Alright, on the top, I should have... Alright, so now 4x plus 2 minus 4x squared minus 24x. And the same denominator is 2x squared plus 13x plus 6. Simplify the top to come up with a minus 4x squared, and then 4x minus 24x is a negative 20x. Don't do anything like writing plus 28x. That would be awful. And then you'll have plus 2 at the end. So your denominator is the same. And we have to figure out what the denominators cannot be equal to, what x cannot be equal to there and there. So clearly that's going to be a negative 6. And what else? A negative half. So you would have to write it as x cannot be equal to a negative 6 and a negative half. Alright, this problem is x over x plus 3 plus 5 over x minus 2. The common denominator on this is going to have to be x plus 3, x minus 2. You get those by simply multiplying the denominators together. For the numerators, it's going to be x times x minus 2. And you can go ahead and write that as x squared minus 2x. And for the other numerator, it's 5 times x plus 3. So that would be 5x plus 15. Now, since we have a plus sign, that makes it much easier on us. We can multiply the denominators together and come up with x squared plus x minus 6. And then simplify like terms in the numerators by having x squared, and then negative 2x plus 5x is plus 3x, and then plus 15. So the only thing left is what x cannot be equal to. And from up here, x could not be a negative 3. And here, it could not be a positive 2.